Welcome to the Forgotten Realms, the home of Dungeons & Dragons and Baldur's Gate 3. Today's essay is a sequel, so if you saw Should Astarion Be Poly, then you probably already know where this is going. But if you don't worry, you're still in the right place, because today we're asking, should Shadowheart be poly? And here's where we take a quick pause for transparency. I am no longer poly. My husband and I chose to close the doors on our relationship years before our wedding, not because we had to, but because it was the right decision for us based on our emotional needs, our long-term goals, and the kind of relationship we wanted to build. That said, before him, I had never really been monogamous.
Editing Kit here. I just wanted to clarify, it's not that I never tried, because I did try monogamy and didn't like it, and the people that I tried it with, I was miserable in relationships with them. So it's kind of a testament to how much my relationship with my husband works that we have been monogamous for 7 years now. That's a really long time. But before him, it didn't work for me. It didn't ever work for me. I think it's also important to note that when it came to the conversation of us wanting to close the doors to our relationship, that I was the one who instigated that conversation, and I wanted to close the doors. He hadn't been seeing anyone else. It's not really his thing, but I wanted to join him in not seeing anyone else, because I'd never actually felt like I could be monogamous with someone before I met him, and I wanted to try it, and so far, it's worked for me.
While I was attending my second college, I became deeply embedded in the ethical non-monogamous community in Portland, Oregon. Not just practicing, but making friends, learning, and sharing, and advocating for healthy, intentional love. So I'm not coming at this from the casual observer. I'm coming at this as someone who's lived it. And before you ask, yes, you can be sub-dom and poly. And yes, you can be a sub while being poly. I am, ironically, writing an entire book series about that very scenario. So let's not assume monogamy is the default setting for every queen, every romance, or every character. Now, for a trigger warning. If you're a die-hard anti-poly person, someone who thinks no one can possibly love or care for multiple people without being a toxic, abusive, or manipulative person, then yeah, you're about to have your version of the world called into question. And rightfully so. Because baby girl, you're just wrong. So this essay, it might upset you. Now would be the time to click off. Or don't. I'm not your mommy. Do I look like my goddess Rhea Ripley? No. But if you're a little subby live like me, or just someone who's been craving more positive poly representation in games, books, and storytelling, then babe, you're gonna love this one. And hey, if you love this kind of dark romance academia, then please tickle that like button, leave a comment, share it with a friend, or maybe sub. I'm not that kind, unless you're an ascended girly like me. Also, a quick note about gameplay. I typically use the poly mod when playing Baldur's Gate 3, which means the only clips I have of breakups or exclusivity scenes are from before I started using mods. So in today's video, you'll be seeing some clips from a lot of other creators as well. When I do show their clip, their username will be featured in the lower left-hand corner. Please go show them some love. Now, grab your cozy drink and relax, because I'm about to go a little deep.
Jump scare, it's my face. My microphone kicked the bucket while I was recording this video. I'm going to try and re-record everything else that I batch filmed, but this video, there just wasn't enough time to do it. So I'm sorry for this audio, and please don't hate me. I just need a new microphone. And before we dive into breaking down exactly if Shadowheart is poly or not, I want to know your opinions before we start. So if you think Shadowheart is poly, drop us a little bear emoji. But if you think she isn't poly, drop us a little bat emoji, signaling that she's kind of like Astarion.
So, what is poly? And what is an open relationship? A polyamorous relationship is one in which people have or are open to having multiple deep romantic relationships at once, with the full knowledge and consent of everyone involved. Polyamory, though, is not the same thing as an open relationship. An open relationship usually refers to a couple that allows for outside spiritual partners, These relationships often prioritize the original pair bond or primary partners, while others entering the picture are primarily there for spice and not romance. Polyamory centers emotional connection. And while for some people there might be spice, that isn't what defines poly. What defines poly is romantic depth, mutual care, and a shared emotional intimacy. Some poly dynamics include a primary partner, while others don't. Some are group-based, some folks date separately, while others share every single partner. There is no one-size-fits-all model. This diversity is what makes polyamory beautiful, and also sometimes messy. But when done ethically, it creates a space for multiple love stories to unfold side by side. So, what does E&M mean? E&M stands for ethical non-monogamy, and it's an umbrella term that includes open relationships, polyamorous relationships, swinging, relationship anarchy, and all other consensual non-exclusive dynamics. It's a big tent under which poly happens to live. They are not the same synonymous terms. And here's something crucial to understand. Polyamory can be for everyone. Every body type, every ethnicity, every ability level, every gender, every sexuality. And yes, even for my ace and aro friends. Ace, also known as asexual, are people who can absolutely be poly. They might build romantic but non-spicial relationships with multiple people, assuming that there's someone who is ace but is not also aro. And aro, which stands for aromantic. Aro people can have multiple partners too, but often this forms an open relationship and not a polyamorous of one. Again, assuming that they are aro but not also ace. So why are aro people only grouped into open relationships and not poly? Well, it's because poly is about romantic connections. If you are someone who doesn't experience romantic attraction because you are aromantic, you're still valid, but your relationship structure is going to fall into what is more an open relationship or in the queer platonic camp. That doesn't mean aromantic folks aren't included in E&M communities. They are and they should be, but this distinction matters. Romantic polyamory and spicial openness are not the same thing. And consent and clarity are part of what makes this structure and dynamic work. Polyamory isn't just a structure, though. It's also a lens, a way of valuing love as something expansive, not exclusive, something abundant, not scarce, something that doesn't vanish just because it's being shared. And in the world of Baldur's Gate 3, that idea is put to the test in some emotionally devastating and beautifully complicated and sometimes heartbreakingly human ways, as we saw with Astarion. So, what is a healthy poly relationship? And furthermore, what does an unhealthy poly relationship look like? Let's get something clear right away. Polyamory is not automatically healthy, just like monogamy is not automatically toxic. The health of a relationship is never about its structure, it's about the people inside of it. So, what makes polyamory healthy? According to polyathermy therapists, other advocates, and yes, even first-hand community experience, there are a few key signs that a polydynamic is grounded in emotional safety. Number 1, radical honesty. Not surface level, quote, I told you that I saw someone, end quote, kind of honesty, but a full spectrum of transparency. Healthy polyamory requires difficult conversations. You have to talk about your jealousy. You have to talk about your fear. You have to talk about why you feel triggered when someone else's partner does something. And if you're not used to being that radically honest, poly is going to break you open. But with that radical honesty also comes radical listening, which is the ability to hear your partner's needs, fears, and jealousy without judgment. It means putting aside your own ego to prioritize emotional clarity. Together, you work to find solutions that meet everyone's needs. Or, if you can't, you have to acknowledge that you're not the right fit. Polyamory requires valuing the emotional health of every single person in every single relationship. And sometimes that means making hard calls to change or remove people, even if the person that's upsetting the balance and ultimately removed is you. Number 2, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Polyamory is not lawless. It thrives on structure. Each relationship needs clearly defined agreements. These might include how much time you spend with each partner, what forms of physical intimacy or emotional intimacy are okay, how new partners are introduced into your dynamics, or what safety precautions are in place. These boundaries are meant to protect everyone physically and emotionally. Number 3, autonomy with accountability. Yes, you are an autonomous free person, but your freedom doesn't cancel out the impact of your choices or actions. Healthy polyamory means respecting your partner's needs, even as you pursue your own needs and desires. You can't just ghost your girlfriend for 3 days because your boyfriend came into town. You have to show up and be there and held accountable in all of your relationship. Number 4, compersion. This one is the holy grail. Compersion is defined as the joy that you feel seeing your partner loved by someone else. It doesn't mean that you never get jealous. That's just a normal human emotion. It means that you work through that jealousy and you find the joy in life anyway. It's the emotional opposite of possessiveness. It's realizing that once you talk through what it is that makes you jealous and you're able to negotiate and come to terms and meet the needs that you have, that you should be able to still find your partner happy. And if you don't find happiness in your partner's happiness outside of the relationship, then this might not be the right path for you. On the flip side of things, what are some signs that a poly relationship is unhealthy? Or, more importantly, that someone isn't really okay with being in one? Number 1, the silent suffering. If one partner is bottling up their discomfort and just trying to get it over with, without support or discussion, they're an emotional ticking time bomb, and they should get out. Number 2, competitive insecurity. If someone constantly compares themselves to another one of your partners, or needs reassurance every time you go out on a date, or treats the dynamic like a ranking system, or like people are collecting each other, that's not poly. In fact, that's just fear dressed up as consent. Number 3, compliance without enthusiasm. Saying yes to poly to avoid losing a partner is not the same as truly wanting it. That's survival, not sovereignty. It's especially important in trauma-informed spaces. If someone is being conditioned to say yes, when what they really want to say is no, then that consent is not real. And polyamory only works when every partner is an enthusiastic, informed adult who can consent. Number 4, resentment. If a partner starts resenting agreements that they once accepted, like, for example, how much time you spend with others, or how they're introduced to your new partners, that might be a sign that either the dynamic needs to be renegotiated or that the dynamic wasn't the right fit for them to begin with. And if that resentment gets ignored, it turns toxic really fast. So, how can you tell if someone is actually ready to be poly? They ask questions instead of making assumptions. They have a secure sense of themselves. They have experience navigating difficult emotions like jealousy or abandonment without blaming others for their feelings. And they have real personal desires for connections beyond monogamy, not just a willingness to tolerate it. And on the flip side, how do you know if someone is just agreeing to poly to avoid losing you and it isn't right for them? They never bring it up unless you bring it up first. They seem withdrawn or emotionally volatile after you go out on a date with someone else. And they often ask you, "Am I not enough for you?" That question, it's heartbreak wrapped up into words. And it often means that someone is saying yes when what they really want to say is, "Please don't go." And that's not healthy poly. That's panic. And no one deserves to experience love from a place of panic. Of all the romanceable characters in Baldur's Gate 3, Shadowheart may be one of the most emotionally intelligent when it comes to navigating polyamory. Her handling of the player's romantic decisions is nuanced, graceful, and most importantly, it's rooted in consent and compassion. Let's start with a moment where you suggest a polydynamic between her and Astarion.
I think you may be overestimating his willingness to share. He may seem like the carefree hedonist, but there's something fragile beneath the facade. If you can give him the solace that I'm convinced he desperately needs, then it would just be cruel for me to try and elbow in, liable to end in tears, or blood, or both. There's no hard feelings. Genuinely. You deserve happiness. And I'm more than glad to remain with you to bear witness to it.
You really ended things with Shadowheart? Just to be with me? Not that there was any doubt. I was the obvious choice, but... well, perhaps there was a smidge of doubt. I do come with my complications. I realize now, I've never really had anyone. Not really. Nothing that compares to you.
Shadowheart doesn't get jealous or possessive. Instead, she gently cautions you.
I think you may be overestimating his willingness to share.
She sees beneath Astarion's hedonistic exterior and recognizes something fragile, something that's still healing. And so, rather than inserting herself into a dynamic that would become unstable, she steps back. Not because she doesn't want you, but because she values everyone's emotional well-being, Astarion's included. That is what ethical poly looks like. That is radical listening and radical honesty. The ability to remove yourself from a situation in which you would upset the emotional stability of those around you. Now, contrast that with her reaction if you asked to pursue Halsin.
You're talking about Halsin, aren't you? I don't blame you. It'd take a cold heart and cobwebbed loins to ignore him. But what exactly did you have in mind? Bold of you to ask. Some might take the suggestion very badly. Luckily for you, I don't count among their number. If you have a chance to climb Mount Halsin, well, I'd be cruel to deny you. I'll be waiting to hear the details afterwards. I'm glad that understanding's been noticed. Hasn't always been the case with others, trust me. Was there anything else? Besides your increasingly complex love life?
Did you find time to speak with your partner? A potentially delicate topic, I understand. Indeed. I had feared a life in service of Shah might have narrowed her mind, but I'm glad to be proven wrong. There is more to her than even she knows, I feel. Now we will have each other, but not just each other. Our hearts are free to roam, together or apart, as nature designed.
Rather than feeling rejected or threatened, she smiles and makes a cheeky comment about Mount Halsin. She sets no emotional landmines. She even expresses genuine happiness for you, true compersion. And she only asks for one thing in return, your honesty. And if you speak with Halsin afterward, he says it very clearly. Our hearts are free to roam together or apart, as nature intended. And that kind of love dynamic, that's polyamory done right. What makes Shadowheart so compelling as a poly character is her flexibility. She can be poly or she could be monogamous depending on what you, the player character, need. If you pursue her exclusively, she honors that. If you explore other loves, she gives you space, so long as the space is built on clarity. And on a personal note, I resonate deeply with her. I wasn't naturally monogamous. In fact, my one past toxic relationship failed in part because I was forcing myself into monogamy against my will.
Editing Kit here. So all of those pictures were from when I was in a relationship where I was being forced to be monogamous rather than choosing to be. And I feel like you could see how miserable I was on my face. Like I genuinely, that relationship made me look ugly, in my opinion. And now, like, you see me now, or you see what I looked like before when I was with my dom who didn't force me to be monogamous. I look so much better. And like, I think I look the prettiest with my husband because my life is nothing but peace. And oh my God. Don't force yourself to be anything you don't want to be. Like, if they're not the right person for you, just they're not the right person for you. And I wish I could go back and tell 20-something-year-old Kit, hey, you're miserable with this dude. Leave him. A better one is waiting. You're gonna turn 25 and the right guy is gonna be right there.
But with my husband, we were able to co-create something that felt right. And to be clear, I was the one who initiated that closure. He'd already chosen that he didn't want to be with anyone else. And I realized that I wanted to try that path with him because love is a spectrum. And polyamory doesn't have to be something you do forever, at least not for everyone. There are some people who it is their forever home, but for others, it's a season of growth that eventually leads to something different. And in our case, we still talk about people we find attractive. We happen to also share the same crushes in women more often than not. Shadowheart's romance path honors that spectrum. She's a character who holds space for your growth, who respects your freedom, and who never compromises her own emotional integrity just to keep you. Whether you choose to be with her alone or to be with her with many, Shadowheart proves that polyamory isn't about just going out and collecting partners. It's about cultivating care. And she does it better than most humans I've met in real life. And here's the thing. I found myself craving and missing that kind of poly representation that Shadowheart offers. She embodies radical honesty, emotional literacy, and graceful flexibility that I rarely see in media. Well, Halson represents the more traditional open relationship, one that's cheerful, spice-forward, and still emotionally available. Shadowheart is the representation that I need. If you romance only Halson, he shows how an open relationship can evolve into exclusivity. But Shadowheart, she shows you what deep, meaningful, and communicative poly can look like. And she's the best representation of healthy poly I've encountered in a video game, or most media, especially if you follow her Selûne path. Because the version of Shadowheart who is a dark justiciar kind of fits the open, possessive relationship dynamic better. But Selûne Shadowheart, that version of her is open-hearted, self-aware, and emotionally available. She feels like a mirror of what poly can be when it's at its best. Shadowheart gives me hope that more games will embrace poly characters with this level of care and depth. Because love, just like a faith, it's the most powerful thing when it's chosen freely. And she understands both.
Like I said, my mic pretty much kicked the bucket. So we're going to do my book promo like this, and I'm going to read off of the screen behind me. I have not done this before. I do not typically read out loud, so forgive me. I swallow hard, my thighs tightening as something low and needy twists inside of me. My chest burns, my body hums with shameful ache. The pressure building between my legs is unbearable. My dog decided this was the right moment to start violently, loudly licking her ass. Nothing's going to work for me tonight. This is just gonna be the funny outro because I can't. It's too much.